Yep. And so the question is to consider is, if there is no God, why? Why be good? Why do what is right? Why we shouldn't be bad? Why we should do certain things? Why we shouldn't do certain things? There's both positive and negative within all moral foundation, really. And Dawkins seems to take a challenge to that, and his reply to Christians or religious people when he gets asked this is, do you really mean to tell me that the only reason you try to be good is to gain God's approval and reward, or to avoid his disapproval and punishment? What he usually says after that is, everyone should avoid this person because they're a thought process away from killing us all. Which again, he then falls into this same pattern of saying, well, if you don't have this, then you'll just do whatever moral,
immoral thing that comes
amoral, really.
Yeah.
It goes on to talk about the believer looks like we're questioning the atheist's motivation for behaving, asking why the unbeliever would even want to take that action. There might be some truth to this, he says, but it isn't. The most foundational, strictly speaking, isn't why be moral, but rather, are there any objective moral standards at all? That's what we're really asking. Yes, again, we can ask the question, why be moral? Why should we do good things? And we can get into kind of the ethics of that, especially when we're covering specific, hard details that the world is, especially now, like, abortion and without kind of an objective standard, you kind of just make your point for whatever side you want, and hopefully you convince somebody of that, and that's kind of where you're at. But if there's objective moral standards, which is the real big question we should be asking, then we can appeal to that and say abortion is wrong because, or abortion is right because, or in certain instances this, or in certain instances that. Right. So there's definitely a foundational question that we ultimately should be asking, and also too that would probably help us stop talking past each other, and we don't have to. We can kind of go based off of, as what we talked about in Dr. Lyle's interview, is not always just say by what standard. There's an attempt to get that person to think deeper about what they're actually saying.
Right. Yeah. So this idea of objective moral standards is the idea of standards that exist independent of our opinions, our beliefs, our feelings, that sort of thing. They are objective. Like, for instance, the highest mountain above sea level on the planet is Mount Everest. Notice, it is objectively the highest mountain. Mm-hmm. So what if I don't believe that? Doesn't change a thing, right? Well, what if my culture or society still doesn't? It is objectively true. Mm-hmm. And so the idea here is true independent of what I believe, what my opinions is, and that sort of thing. Can we have a morality that is like that, that is objective, right?
And so when you have atheists or people who don't have a faith-based system in a god or gods, they kind of have to appeal to kind of the universe giving us that. In fact, part of the God delusion that Dawkins writes about, he talks about even religion giving us a part of what nature gives us, which is a moral character, not to kill each other, so that we can work progressively and cooperationally to achieve survival in a group setting. And so we don't kill each other because we're designed to be social, except when we are. You can always pick apart the detail, and there's good fodder for that. But again,
and he's gonna come to that atheist. I think that's the next.
Yeah. I mean, he'll definitely cover that. But it's a question of where's the objective standard? Is it in nature? Is it ingrained in us because of evolution, or does it exist in God's character, and His declaration to us tells us by what standard we should live by, and the things that we do and shouldn't do. And as the lawgiver, we should follow the law, or there are consequences. So there's that. So the question, the most pressing question, isn't why atheists should be moral, though that's not entirely irrelevant, Dr. Stowe says. The real question is whether naturalism can support or account for moral standards themselves, which is kind of what we were talking about right there.
Right, yeah. So notice what he's saying. the question, we're not questioning the atheist's character, their actions, their motivations, right? We're not saying if there is no God, then no one can behave morally. That's not what we're saying. We're not saying if there is no God, then no one has any motivation to behave morally, right? What we're saying is if there is no God, or at least he's not saying it directly, but he's getting at it, right? Objective moral standards, those that are independent of us, do not exist, right? So we're not questioning the atheist's motivations and that their character and actions and that sort of thing. So that is a confusion that happens when you begin to ask fundamental questions about their fundamental, the basis of their fundamental beliefs.
Which is where like postmodernist philosophers and thinkers and social Darwinists come in and say, well, here's this culture and it says this, which if you are going to take this naturalism true, that might be the case. My tribe might have evolved certain traits that have made me a warring nation. And so we conquer and expand, but then we shut those things off so that once you've expanded far enough, you're not warring with yourself. Or there's other ones who have, developed a polyamorous system and have expanded that way. And so kind of what's true for one culture isn't true for another. And that's where you would derive your basis by naturalism supporting an account of that moral standard. So postmodernist says almost kind of in a consistent manner that if we kind of believe that there are these people groups around the world, it's more likely than not that they're going to form not universal concepts of right and wrong, although that might be the case because we're all human beings, but because of weather or resources or proximity to other nation states or tribes, they would form different positive and negative moral standards within their DNA structure that they pass on. Again, social Darwinism to me is a hard pill to swallow. So.
Yeah.